This is the third day of the last week of the 33 years that Jesus Christ lived upon this earth. And the events that we find recorded concerning this day in his life are given to us in Matthew chapter 24 and 25, in Mark chapter 13, and in Luke chapter 21. Jesus uses an opportunity that's before him concerning the temple to give a discourse on events of the end of the world. The Bible tells us that Jesus makes the statement about the temple when the disciples point out to him how beautiful the temple is, that Jesus makes the statement that the time is coming when not one stone will rest upon another stone as far as the temple is concerned. Jesus is then asked the question, Lord, when will these things be, and what will be the signs of your coming? You know, people are still asking those same very questions, even to this day. As a matter of fact, some of the things that are occurring in our world this very day probably have people thinking more about end time events than anything that has happened in many people's lifetimes. I know it's certainly true for me, and I'm sure it very well may be true for you. Well, the Bible tells us that Jesus tells the apostles that they will be persecuted, and they were. Every single one of them died a martyr's death except for one. John the apostle died of old age, and that believers would be persecuted, and they still are even to this very day. And he stated that Jerusalem would fall, and it did, by the Romans in AD 70. And then he moved into events concerning the end times. If you'd like to know what Jesus had to say specifically about those events, read Matthew 24 and 25. But what I will emphasize to you is this. Jesus stated to the disciples, as I will say to you, that no man knoweth except for the Father when these events will occur. That God the Father has fixed a time in which he will bring these events forth. And Jesus stated that the gospel will be preached to all the world. It is my firm conviction, because I believe in the catching away of believers before the tribulation period comes, that before I finish this gospel shot, the trumpet could sound, the dead in Christ could rise first, and then I could rise out of this chair with Randy, and he and I would meet the Lord in the air, and thus we should be forever in the presence of the Lord. You be on the alert, and you be ready for the coming.